Yesterday, Sunday, May 16, 2021, the reception was organized for recently released students of the Federal College of Forestry in Kaduna State. The abductors released the remaining 27 out of the 39 students that were being held captive nearly 2 months after taking custody of them. Gunmen originally kidnapped 39 students from the Federal College of Forestry Mechanization in the northwestern state. 10 of the students had been set free on the 5th and 8th of April. In the meantime, following the reception, RYANAIR special correspondent Faith R had an exclusive interview with Islamic cleric and Sheikh Ahmed Gumi, one of the negotiators responsible for the release of the abducted students.
As we are trying to negotiate with the bandits through our contact with them, through their leaders, the Fulani leaders, the parents are also impatient. In fact, their interference has been delaying these things, because when we reach a conclusion that they should release them, then a parent will call them and say, I'm ready to pay. So parents sometimes do things behind our initiative, and this has been causing problem and causes a lot of delays. So we don't know what parents do behind then, but we have followed a system in which since they respect their leaders, it's difficult for them to say no. So in the end, they have released people without any compensation from our side. But we don't know what the parents behind this scene did.
So from your side, you're confirming that no ransom?
No ransom was paid, yes.
Okay. Because other people have been paying money, what is your opinion on this? Because there is this feeling that if ransoms are paid, it just puts more students in danger. That's what many people are saying. What's your take on that?
No, you see, even if you give them a lot of money and they're in the bush, they need to come out and buy whatever they want to buy. So that's where the government should come in. Why should weapons come into the country unchecked? Why should drugs come in unchecked? So this is the work of the NDLA, which is the the authority in charge with dealing with drugs, the custom in charge with dealing with the weapons. So even if you have $1 billion in the forest, you can buy nothing with it if the government is functioning. So I think this argument that when you give them money, they will buy weapons, no. Let the government stand up and work. Give them the money, then you know where you can catch them. This money they're asking is big money. You can put chips on it, you can track where money is, you can follow them and catch your money. But I don't want a situation whereby the choice is between lives and bandits over money and bandits. I prefer to fight the bandits with the money than to fight the bandits with young children. You see innocent children there, you just can imagine if one is some of our own children, So it's better the government devise a system by, even if they collect the money, they have nowhere to run away.
All right, Tuna, we'll have your take on this, all of this reception yesterday.
Well, it's interesting that he talked about the government not functioning. So I think on whatever side of the divide you stand, that opinion is pretty much unanimous in Nigeria today. That is quite an indictment on the federal government. But Sheikh Gumi's comments here about bandits respecting their leaders, I wish they would take it a step further and show respect to their leaders by stopping the kidnap entirely. It's not enough for Sheikh Gumi to say they respect their leaders so they listen to the negotiations. I hope they can be persuaded that this is really not the way forward. That has to stop. And what he has expressed here is a middle ground. It's different from the stance that we've seen of some state governors that have been accused of being apologists by paying ransom and by pandering to bandits. And it's also different from the stance, a hardline stance of no ransom and no negotiation. He's saying he completely disagrees with the idea of paying ransom, but that there must be channels of communication open and trust must be built so that the bandits will put their arms down. He's advocating for amnesty for bandits. Now, personally, I don't agree with amnesty for criminals. But that's just what he's saying. What is paramount to me is to know what arrangements have been made for the survivors of this ordeal with regards to their physical and mental health. It's good to know that it has been stressed that there was no sexual abuse of any form. That's a relief to know. But they have been damaged by this encounter, inevitably. So I want to know what arrangements have been made for that and what arrangements have been made for them to graduate, for them to complete the courses that they were doing there in the first case. Are they expected to return to that campus? If so, what are the security upgrades that have been undertaken? That's really what I'm most interested in, and that has yet to become clear.
Well, first, I think it's important to say that Sheikh Ahmed Gumi, President Olusegun Obasanjo, should be commended. All of this is within the context of the Sheikh Ahmed Gumi and President Olusegun Obasanjo initiative. Clear demonstration of the fact that while non-state actors are creating problems in Nigeria, other non-state actors can also help to solve the problem. And President Buhari has repeatedly said, and others as well, that, to solve the insecurity challenge in Nigeria, to resolve it, to establish peace and stability, is a collective responsibility. And in this particular instance, you may disagree with the methods, you may disagree with part of the narratives, but we have seen two prominent Nigerians who went out of their way in the absence of the Kaduna state government, in the absence of the federal government of Nigeria, to engage with bandits to get these, students of the College of Forestry Mechanization released on May 5, 2021. There were 39 of them, the group referred to as the Afaka 39. A few of them were released after their parents had paid some money, ransom, and then finally on May 5, the rest were released. And what happened on Sunday, yesterday, was a reception organized under the auspices of the Sheikh Ahmed Gumi and Olusegun Obasanjo initiative. President Obasanjo was not there. He was represented by one of his aides, Vitalis Otes. And, we were told that the, freed students were wearing a T-shirt that was donated to them by that initiative with the label, "We are strong, in God we trust." And I assume that the designers of those T-shirts were deliberate in saying, "In God we trust," because, they don't trust in government. They now have put their faith in God, both the students and the parents themselves. And it's instructive that at that event, our government representatives were again absent. And that puts the proper accent on Dr. Sheikh Ahmed Gumi saying that, look, government has to function. I think that is a very important point, because the scope, the scale of the insecurity challenge in Nigeria is directly linked to the failure of governance. And that was why he was talking about customs. There is a proliferation of small arms and light weapons. There are open spaces in Nigeria. Bandits, kidnappers, terrorists are, operating as if there is no state. And so he says government must play its part. And I think that should be a major takeaway for government officials who may be reacting to this. Now, he talked about the parents, how the parents were going behind, to go and engage with the bandits. Well, can you blame any parent? If an incident occurs in a state and the state government and the state governor, comes out and says, even if his own child was involved, he will just leave the matter in the hands of God. So parents, became desperate. They protested. They carried placards. Nobody listened to them. The only help that they got was from this Sheikh Ahmed Gumi and Obasanjo initiative. That, again, has to be properly underlined. And then, of course, we do not have any information as regards the payment of ransom. But Sheikh Ahmed Gumi was very clear. He says it's better to negotiate with these bandits, because many of the issues are local. Many of the problems are local. And these bandits have grievances. But you can't disagree with that. There are some people who say you do not negotiate with criminals. But does the state have the capacity to function as Sheikh Ahmed Gumi has demanded?
All right, big questions and important insights raised there. Thank you so much, as always, for your time. That's all on News Headline. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll have Ruth Sodiri, Michael Wilson, Adeso Mora, Aaron Akirjala give updates on Africa global business, COVID-19, sporting activities across the globe. Stay with us. All right, welcome back to the morning show right here on the Rise News channel. Let's quickly go to our dependable Ruth Sodiri. Ruth, it's great to have you. How are you?
Fine, thank you, Rufai. Good morning to you. Good morning, Tundu. Good morning, Doctor. So we kick off with two summits that are taking place in France today. African leaders will be converging in Paris in order to have a summit that's been convened by Emmanuel Macron. And Macron is asking that these African nations that are coming together, we have to excuse, there we go. So we've got Ramaphosa, we've got a number of other African leaders, President Buhari, Nana Akufo-Addo of Ghana, also Egypt's leader as well, Kagame as well, that's going to be part of this summit, where they will be talking about financing, post-COVID financing. African nations apparently are facing what is like a $30 billion shortfall with respect to how their finances have been affected. And so they'll be meeting today and tomorrow. Today actually will be focused on South Sudan. South Sudan is actually going to be looking at, it has about a debt to the tune of about $60 billion. And Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok is going to be part of that summit. So today, Monday's summit is going to be focused on South Sudan. Tuesday's summit, President Buhari has already left for Paris, as Ramaphosa and other leaders. But for Monday, today, they will be focused on South Sudan. Essentially, Abdallah Hamdok is looking to reduce debt, the amount of debt that the nation is but the nation has accumulated, which is about 60 billion. 38% of that apparently is being owed to Paris Club members. So Monday is for South Sudan, Tuesday is for the other African nations. France is calling for special drawing rights, which are used to finance imports, to be reallocated from developed nations to developing nations. The IMF, I believe by June of this year, is supposed to make a decision on about $650 billion of special drawings rights. About 34 billion should go to Africa, 24 billion for sub-Saharan, and the rest for emerging markets. So a lot that is going to be discussed with the African leaders, about a dozen of them, not just Nigeria, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, Mali, a whole number of other nations will be convening. So that's going to be the main focus for today and tomorrow. Locally here, the central bank on Friday removed the official exchange rates from its website. Normally, you would see the exchange rates, inflation, the monetary policy rates, and oil prices. But as you can see, if you go to the website, the exchange rate is no longer there. Truth be told, the exchange rate of 379 hasn't really been relevant. This is what the central bank has essentially been referencing. Even Finance Minister Zainab Ahmed referenced this a while back. The IMF, the Investors and Exporters FX window, you can see the closing there as of Friday was 411 naira per dollar. That's what they've been, referencing for FAC allocations. That's essentially what they've been using. There's actually the central bank's official rate actually follows a 2% band around the closing rates on the INE window. Now, the World Bank, other bodies have called for convergence because there's still an SMEIS window for importers. There's still a window for bureau de change operators. They want a convergence. This essentially, it would have helped if there was some word from the central bank. We contacted some officials there who confirmed that the rate had been removed. But some people took it to mean it was a devaluation. They were like, okay, well, if it was 379 and you scrapped it and you're now saying NAFEX, then that means somehow it's been devalued from 379 to 411. That's not the case. The NAFEX rate of 411 is what they've been referencing now for quite some time. The only issue is that it would have helped if they had come up with like an official statement and said, hey, listen, forgetting these 379 rates, and NAFEX is essentially what we are using. To Kaduna, the Kaduna Disco, Kaduna Electric put out a couple tweets. Here's the first tweet here. Power failure due to NLC, Nigerian Labour Congress industrial action. Management regrets to inform its customers in Kaduna State that the service interruption currently being experienced in the state is a result of the industrial action embarked upon. At the bottom of the screen, this tweet continues. By the Nigerian Labour Congress, NLC. In compliance with the NLC directive, the TCN, Transmission Company of Nigeria, has knocked off about 33 kV lines in Kaduna State. They continued in a second tweet. Consequently, they are appealing to all community security agencies and vigilante groups to be vigilant so that men of the underworld will not cash in on the situation to vandalize power supply installations, because with darkness everywhere, these things can happen. And they're saying they'll report any suspicious movement, and at the bottom there, they are appealing to both parties in the dispute to strive at an amicable resolution for normalcy to return. The NLC versus El Rufai. NLC is saying that is their Kaduna Council is commencing their strike today. It's supposed to be a 5-day strike, and it's supposed to be in response to about 7,000 workers being sacked in Kaduna. El Rufai says, look, we can't afford the wage bill. It's too expensive. I have to let these folks. So remember, he sacked about 12, 13 or so thousand teachers that failed exams, qualification exams back in 2016. You add that together, that's a sizable number of people that have been sacked. And he's facing so much. He's got the banditry issue and the kidnapping going on. He's got this, but he's saying, we can't afford it. We have to let them go. This is the conversation. This is a microcosm of the wider discussion of Nigeria's overhead costs, personnel costs, size of the civil service, and what to do about it. It's bloated. It's eating up our capital. But the question now is, you let these people go, what happens? Where do they go? You're adding to unemployment. So it's a very, very tough conversation. We'll have to see how things play out over the next 5 days.
And it's, thank you so much, as always, Rotus. And it's even more painful, if I could use the word, looking at the economic situation, as 33% unemployment rate, you're letting more people lose jobs. I was telling you the other day, Rotus, on the need for us to have monthly job numbers in this country, so we even know how much jobs we're creating. If we were to have those figures, with this El Rufai's decision, it's going to be minus 5,000 jobs. And that is on a mammoth scale. You know, because when you look at the antecedents of job creation in this country, it's not as great as it should be. People are not creating as much new jobs as it should be in this country. So it's something both parties must look into critically. How about El Rufai looking at ways to increase his revenue so he can pay for those shortfalls? Because, I mean, the problem here is a revenue problem. If he takes more in revenue, then definitely if he creates more wealth, he can, you know, raise the payment profile and still be able to absorb those people. And the question is, even if he's letting them go, what would be the safe landing from them? I'm not sure we've had any conversation on that, because how can you integrate them into jobs and schemes in society that can mop them up? Because people must not be out of job. And I don't mind, you know what they say about, you know, being available to the devil to use. So it's a conversation we should have on jobs. And since he's saying Kaduna is a very industrialized state, they've got the automotive sector going on, they've got other sectors going on, how can we create jobs to mop up people? Because the real conversation here is, if we have enough industries in Kaduna, then definitely we can mop up people. I mean, if we have like 5-6 industries that employ over 50,000 people, then we can mop up that. But I think the CBN is coming to reality now. They are beginning to see things for themselves, that this is not sustainable in the long run, and kudos to them. But the real point will be convergence, because we need to bring together, we need to put our house in order as regards this currency madness going on. It's chasing away foreign investors because they don't know where to put their treasure now in the country. They don't even know the exchange rate. So it should truly reflect, and only time will tell, and show up production, you know, show up circulation of currencies and things like that, so that we can get at least, you know, some level of a very strong currency. Anyway, I'm totally against a strong currency if you're a highly productive nation. That's my weird economic thinking anyway.
In Kaduna State, unfortunately, the people who will suffer from all of this are the ordinary people. Already there is panic buying, there is hoarding in Kaduna State, because the people have become very anxious. We're just hoping that, you know, the Kaduna State government and organized labor will be able to sit at a round table to look at this. The state government is saying that it pays the bulk of its revenue. It uses the bulk of its revenue to pay salaries, and that's no longer sustainable. And hence, the government wants to right size. Now, who determines that right sizing? And is this the right time to right size? And how did the Kaduna State government end up in the last, say, 5-6 years with a bloated bureaucracy? These are questions that will need to be asked. And in any case, I think also the Kaduna State government should not think that it can just dictate, take it or leave it, and insist on right sizing. Because that in itself can create social tension, can deepen the crisis within the state. If you say you right size and you throw people out of work, look at the implications for household. Look at the implications for peace and stability in a state where kidnapping and banditry and terrorism have all become very big business. Okay, so all of these things have to be done in a contextual manner. And the government of the state must see the need to talk to the people, to the stakeholders. The same Kaduna electorate that is saying they are urging for negotiation and all that, they've shut down services. You know, and imagine that in terms of cost. I hope if nothing is done, somebody will look at the cost of all of this.
Right.
Right. Now, as for France showing interest, I think President Emmanuel Macron has been consistent. The France-African Summit has been there for some time. Now, this time around, they're talking about financing African economies. African economies have a deficit of about $300 billion on account of the pandemic. And President Macron has been very consistent in asking for debt forgiveness, debt renegotiation, debt relief, multilateral support for African countries. And so this is right there, in the front burner, and we hope that it will be a productive session tomorrow when they are focusing on African economies. However, I think the point made by President Kufuor of Ghana in a past France-Africa summit again will come to play. He made the point on that occasion, and it's a very popular video, that look, at the end of the day, African leaders must take responsibility for the future of their own countries. It's not about the West, France or whatever country, dictating to African countries how to move forward. And I think that whatever the outcome of the meeting is, African countries, African leaders must know that they are negligent in many respects. And Africa suffers from a leadership deficit problem. One of the issues is Sudan, which they're looking at today. Fine, Sudan needs help. Although the president of South Sudan, says they are not going there to ask for loan or any kind of extraordinary support. And there's also the issue of Rwanda. Paul Kagame is attending that meeting for the very first time in a long time. And that has to do with the relationship between France and Rwanda over the 1994 genocide.
Right.
So these are the strands that we should all be focusing on as we try to follow up on the meeting in France. Indeed.
Rotis, are you aware whether President Macron did get an RSVP from Beijing? Because the last report I read, China had not confirmed whether or not they'll be attending the summit, but the U.S. will be represented by Anthony Blinken. Yeah,
you're right, Tundu. It's been reported that China will send the diplomats to represent them. As of now, there hasn't been any confirmation, but I understand that someone will be sent. So we're waiting to see who that diplomat will be. And also, Governor El-Rufai's actions are offensive to the labor unions because of Section 20 of the Nigerian Labour Act. Governors should endeavor to follow the laws that have been passed by competent legislature. You cannot just decide to right-size, whatever that word means, and retrench everybody over the age of 50 when civil service rules say the retirement age is 60. And if you're going to make people redundant, there need to be redundancy payments, there need to be notice served to trade unions. People cannot act like they're monarchs when really they're elected officials as well.
All right.
Well said. Well said.
Thank you so much, Rotis, as always. We'll move to Michael Wilson for a business update from London. Michael, great to have you. Morning, Michael.
Yeah, good morning. Welcome to a new week. Good morning. It's COVID worries, really. Singapore's introduced 6 strict social restrictions over the weekend. Taiwan, Malaysia, 2 aggressive nationwide restrictions there. Thailand, 2. And Japan, I'm just looking at the detail this morning, has enlarged the number of prefectures in states of emergency. So that's really a kind of global concern this morning. China, though, mainly unscathed so far. From a cold-hearted perspective, it really is, this is the one that matters as far as the world economy is concerned. An explosion of local transmission there would certainly set the cat amongst the pigeons as far as markets are concerned. And I'm not talking about the human tragedy, I'm just merely talking about the markets here. Close second for the rest of Asia is the effectiveness of these national restrictions. Even though this region is now outperforming everybody else, that's a real threat. Let's turn our attention to cryptocurrencies. Apart from Elon Musk and all the Bitcoin, Dogecoin noise on Twitter and all the rest of it, the real issue that's emerging from all this, and this is really interesting, is the ransomware attack on the Colonial oil pipeline in the United States, and people are telling me now that over the weekend that the regulatory threat to cryptocurrencies, because of payment, being made in Bitcoin, for example, and other cryptocurrencies, as far as criminals are concerned, will put it under that much more pressure than the tech industry is in right now. So this kind of Wild West cryptomania may be coming to an end, particularly the regulatory authorities get their teeth into it. Overall then, Asian markets diverged after Wall Street finished on a relatively positive note. S&P up 1.5%, Nasdaq up 2.5%, Dow Jones up 1% on Friday. In China, healthcare stocks have climbed. Steady economic data this morning from China. What do we got? Shanghai Composite up about 1%, Hong Kong about 1/3%, Chinese retail sales up 17%, not completely satisfactory, slightly behind forecast, but industrial output in China matching expectations. Overall, here's a thought for the beginning of the week. Then I've got a couple of these. I'll come on to inflation later on. But stock markets really, I mean, the view is that this is not about investors. This is about traders. This is all the rest of it right now, the usual problems with that kind of thing. If you're not experiencing these kind of things, time to withdraw from the water, enjoy the sunshine on the beach, basically. China is worried about the commodity boom there. I told you last week about iron ore futures and the rest of it actually creeping up. Industrial production up in China, of course, but that's worked quite well with the markets. They may not be so forgiving as this kind of rapid advance softens, and PPI, though, is climbing as well. It's a very mixed picture out of China, but they are clearly worried about the commodity boom there, the commodity boom internationally, and as usual, the authorities in China blame what they describe as speculators, i.e. the markets. But, you know, we have our own judgments about that, as I'm quite sure we all do. A global arms race for semiconductors, that's what it's being described at the moment. South Korea was the latest. You remember on Thursday, $510 trillion, $452 billion being put into their own production of semiconductor chips, and that really is being echoed around the world as well, as more countries want to onshore this away from their traditional their traditional suppliers, China mainly, of course, and becoming much more self-reliant, because there is a real shortage, and we've talked about this as far as cars are concerned. As far as corporate stuff's concerned, CNN owner eyes media merger with Discovery. This is AT&T nears a deal for $150 billion streaming giant. The deal will merge Warner Media and Discovery. The clear message here is that they are trying to get them to competitive terms with the giants Netflix and Disney, and we're expecting an announcement today. Nothing confirmed at the moment. We're going to talk travel now, and the ever-abundant is actually saying that things are going to get better, but traffic levels down 81% over the year. The new fiscal year, as they put it, continues to be challenging, with uncertainty and around where COVID restrictions and travel restrictions will actually be eased. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're all in a fog about this. There's day-to-day announcements of where we might or might not travel. I'm sure what Nigeria is exactly the same, and it's all very, very confusing. The business of the Guptas, the business empire of the Liberty Steel owner Sanjeev Gupta, now under investigation by the Serious Fraud Office. We've talked about the overspill from Greensill Capital and the rest of it. Things are going to get very serious. The family have said they're going to cooperate fully with the investigation. Yes, well, of course they are. UK top shareholders, including BlackRock, for example, are backing AstraZeneca. AstraZeneca coming under attack because Elliott Management, which is an activist investor group in the United States, is saying that they want a CEO with a deeper knowledge of the science of the technology there, and the present CEO, giant there, coming under. Investors are actually gathering. Lockdown eases today. We can go. The weather outside, very good indeed, as it's raining and nasty here. But there is still confusion about where people can actually travel. And even though there are big headlines about we can now go and have our holidays and the rest of it, even Thomas Cook, it's saying 75% of its bookings are for Portugal. Or this is the Thomas Cook, of course, organisation rather than the company that went into liquidation. Online travel agents saying that, and people are planning really to stay at home, I think. But There is a good jobs boost for the UK as far as the pandemic's concerned. A lot more jobs coming up in retail and service industries. Commodities, oil floating to the top of the barrel once again. A lot to do with the Colonial Pipeline resolution there. I don't understand that. Again, as I've said, it's about fuel. It's not about crude oil, but any excuse. And gold is getting quite interesting. I have some thoughts, therefore, for you about inflation. We've talked about that. Let's get really down to this, shall we? The nitty-gritty of it is that there have been some idiosyncratic price rises. People have been buying transport, they've been buying cars. Rental companies in the United States have been selling off rental cars. Now they don't have enough, so they're buying up on the second-hand market. All these little things are happening right now. Do we fear inflation? Yes, we do. For central banks and governments, navigating the next few quarters of this kind of data is going to be very, very difficult indeed. The expectation, as I keep saying, is that this inflationary threat will prove transitory, may well fade during 2022. Why is that? Well, number one, the belief is that supply chain blockages will ease with the removal of pandemic restrictions. Rapid innovation, here's the thing, will increase and alter patterns of demand, and exceptional public spending by governments and furlough schemes will come to an end. And this is the key. So everything's in an artificial reality right now. We expect inflation to level off slightly.
I mean, Michael, you finally came on our side by saying you did worry about inflation, and I was worrying about it. I was talking about it for the past 2 weeks. Finally, you are on my side saying you are worried about it. You called it idiosyncratic. I don't think it's idiosyncratic. I think there's a method to it. I think it's the overheating of the economy that is coming in with the palliative and the stimulus package at the same time, and a lot of people not easing things out by going back out to work again. So, I mean, we share the same views on that. But real quickly, I want to talk about ransomware. AXA, the French insurer, said they were attacked by ransomware. I mean, over the weekend, I think it was their office out of Asia. Most of the data was lost. What should be the firm's solution as regards, cyber attacks on offices and the workspace? And secondly, do you think antitrust and anti-competition will pass that deal between Time Warner and Discovery? Because it's going to be a behemoth of a company, when they finally come together. Goodness me. It's supposed to be the biggest media enterprise in the world.
As far as ransomware is concerned, if you were starting a bank right now, who would you rather hire? Would you hire bankers, or would you hire bank robbers who know how to get into a bank, and therefore you would know how to defend your bank from bank robbers? I know what my answer to that would be.
Bank robbers.
I'd be hiring the ex-bank. Correct. I'd be doing that. So that's number one. That's my thought on crypto security. You hire hackers, and that's what companies are doing. That's the only way forward. You probably will have a slush fund that pays ransom. I don't know. I don't know what the corporate attitude towards it would be. Overall, the headlines are, of course, we don't pay ransoms. Well, of course, we do pay ransoms. It's been, as I said to you on Friday, we talked about the same kind of thing, didn't we? Something which is as old as the hills. It's been going on ever since human beings walked the earth. And have people paid ransom? Yes, they do. Yes, they have. Will they continue to? Yes, they will. How do you do it? You protect yourself by getting into the minds of the people that want to hack your systems. The other thing that you were talking about was, what was your second thing?
Time Warner and Discovery.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I mean, so the truth of it is that what you've got to be to take on the other giants is big yourself, number one. That'll be the argument. Number two, it'll be consumers actually want this kind of thing. Will it bring prices down? Doubt it very much indeed. I suspect we're getting close to a monopoly position. So, yeah, absolutely right with you in this. I think that corporate lawyers will make a fortune.
Well, Michael, I was going to talk to you about a report by WHO. Through a paper published in the Environment Journal, talking about long working hours and how that poses a threat to human health, the health of the average worker. And of course, the effect in the indicated 750,000 workers is mostly noted in Asia and the Western Pacific. Where I grew up, being told that hard work does not kill, that it is laziness, on the other hand, that kills, where that may be a cultural thing. But do you think that capping working hours will increase productivity? Because the indication in that report is that even in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic, we're likely to have a situation whereby people will work longer hours and they will be faced with existential threats. Now, the other question has to do with Debenhams. after 242 years. Debenhams, which was, perhaps the biggest retail stores at a point in its history, they've now closed all their shops, not just on the high street, but also elsewhere. Now, as a business model, what are the lessons that we can learn from this? Because business schools teach this issue about, when a business fails, there are lessons to learn. It's either the business has failed to innovate, or there is a failure at the level of the management. And I don't want to think that Debenhams are now being reduced to the level of an online platform by Boohoo is strictly only as a result of the pandemic.
Okay. Longer working hours. So what I used to enjoy working normally was the commute. I didn't enjoy it at the time, but I do now because it allowed a bit of time to think about things, as it took an hour to get home and an hour to get into work and so on. Longer hours, I don't think, produce productivity. Productivity is not defined by the amount of time you actually spend. That's why the word, I suppose, is productivity. I think that a lot of people are not finding their office hours and their work hours defined by their job. They're worrying about it all the time. That's why some of our most talented business leaders, both in your country and our country and in the rest of the world, have a slight mental problem. They're what we would call on the fringes, on the cusp, on the bandwidth of being slightly what's the initial? Is it ADT? You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, that slight thing that doesn't make them very good socially, but they're constantly thinking about their businesses all the time. I don't want to be like that. I'm sure most people in the world, they want to have time with their family. You need to decompress. You need to meet your friends. You need to get out and hug people if necessary. It's all that human stuff. No, working longer hours is a fool's errand, basically. It's not about laziness, because I've worked with a number of international companies, and they all say they work very hard. I'm particularly talking about the United States. On a Friday afternoon, try ringing up Wall Street. Help yourself, by all means do, and see if there's anybody around in the office, or they've all nipped off in the afternoon. Because they all pretend that they work very hard, and we've all done the business about putting our jackets on the back of the chair and so on, but it doesn't really happen. Your other question is about traditional retail models. I don't think it's a bad thing for Debenhams to go online, but I don't know what they're going to sell, because my local Debenhams is like walking into a bazaar in a market. There's lots of different franchises, or there were, so before it closed, lots of different franchises around. The lesson is you've got to move with the consumer. If the consumer, i.e. the shopper, wants something, then you've got to go with that. You cannot invent your own thing. Now, one thing that's been done very well in this country, and I'm sure you've got examples of it with you, is John Lewis, for example. Now, I know they're withdrawing from the high street, but you went into a shop like that. It was a nice experience. You spoke to grown-ups who knew what they were talking about. You asked them for something. If they didn't have it, they'd get it for you. And they also competed on price. What's not to like about that? Into Debenhams, you never knew where you were.
Right, and we see the end of it. But what you just said, there are a lot of CEOs and political leaders who are described as functioning psychopaths. So you do make a very good point there. I wanted to talk about ransomware and the reports that's come out that $350 million was paid last year and $81 million already. So they are doing a brisk business. What exactly can regulators do at this point to stop it? Because this is a similar issue to what we're facing here in Nigeria. When people pay ransom for kidnapping, all you do is feed the beast and encourage it.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, I mean, I don't think regulators can do anything, quite honestly. What's a regulator going to do? Is it going to lecture you or me or a company about whether you should give in to hostage takers? I mean, this is an argument, as I say, that's been going on for years. I think what you do is you attack it from the other way around. You say, how do we defend ourselves against this? Is are you, if you are an intrinsically very rich person, do you invest in security? Probably. I mean, I don't want to know about it, but I suspect you do. If you are a company, which is a utility company, which is very important to lots of people, do you invest in security? Yes, you do. I don't think the regulators are either. What the regulators going to do? Say it's a bad thing? I don't think so. I think what you do is you increase the defences against people, and you try to second guess what these people are doing. They're after money. I mean, or political influence. Are they going to get political influence? Doubt it very much indeed. Are they going to get money? Okay. Very probably. So,
Michael, I mean,
you hire.
Thank you so much, Michael, for your time. All you just do is you hack the hacker, really. That's all you do. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you as always. For updates on COVID-19 pandemic, Adesua Mora is here with us. Adesua, great to have you.
Thank you, Rufai. Good morning,
and thanks
guys.
for always giving us the COVID hack every morning.
You're welcome. So much to talk about with so little time. Over 163 million people have now been infected by the coronavirus globally, with at least 3.3 million people losing their lives to the virus. We're seeing a decline of officially reported figures from India. In the last 24 hours, the country posted 281,386 cases. However, deaths rose by 4,106. Police in India are patrolling the Ganges after more than 2,000 suspected COVID victims were recovered from the river. Prime Minister Modi still doesn't see the need for a national lockdown as his government promises more vaccine against the virus. Here in Nigeria, the country recorded its lowest number of infections in 2021. 7 new infections were recorded in 2 states in the last 24 hours, according to the NCDC. Vaccination against COVID-19 also continues across Nigeria. 1.8 million people have now been vaccinated. The data shows that Lagos has the most vaccinated persons, followed by the Federal Capital Territory and then Kano State. Meanwhile, the Lagos State government announced over the weekend an extension of its phase 1 vaccination for another 2 weeks. According to the state's primary healthcare board, this is to give opportunity for those who could not be vaccinated earlier. Now, this extension is taking place in only 13 local government areas. It is unclear why these 13, but here's a list. They include Etiosa, Ikeja, Koshofe, Alimosho, Ikorodu, Oshodi, Mushin, Ekpe. Others are Amuwo, Dofin, Badagry, Ojo, Lagos Mainland, and Lagos Island. There is no indication that this will affect the commencement of the second dose exercise, which is to commence on the 28th of this month. You would recall that the state health authorities announced an additional 57,000 doses of AstraZeneca was received from the federal government last week. To South Africa now, where the second phase of its vaccine rollout is to commence today, with the aim of inoculating 5 million citizens aged over 60 by the end of June, and that's according to the health minister, Zweli Mkhize. He said an additional 325,000 doses of Pfizer vaccine would arrive at midnight, bringing the total of the Pfizer vaccine in the country to 975,780. Now, South Africa has ordered enough COVID-19 vaccines for 46 million out of its 60 million population. It remains the most affected country on the continent in terms of infections and deaths. But local media in South Africa are reporting this morning that the registration for this target population of those below 60, those age over 60 that are supposed to start their vaccination today, remains very low. So this rollout is already hitting a roadblock. And finally, this morning, most of the UK takes a major step towards normality today as restrictions are eased despite concerns over the spread of a more transmissible variant of the disease, talking about the Indian variant. Now, Health Secretary Matt Hancock says there's a high degree of confidence that the vaccines protect against this Indian variant, but it could spread like wildfire among those who are yet to receive their jab. Over 20 million adults in the UK have now received a full dose of vaccination, meaning they've gotten their 2 doses. The UK is said to have most of the Indian variants at the moment outside of India, but you also know that the UK is leading when it comes to sequencing of the coronavirus genome.
Thank you, Adesua.
Okay.
Well, the UK COVID rule, I just have to say, when I had 2 households, because 2 households are now being allowed to meet indoors, you can go around 2 households.
Hug.
Yes, both alike in dignity in fair Verona, where we lay our scene. What play is that, Dr. Batsi? You know, William Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet. Anyway, why is Narendra Modi going on with the building of a $1.8 billion parliament when his people are dying at this one? Make it make sense. And I was reading this awful report about hundreds of teachers dying because they were forced to participate in the elections. They use their academic staff, same as we do here, with elections. Apparently, teachers were begging their unions not to be drafted in. They were, and they're dying in their droves.
Well, my big takeaway from the UK story and the statements made by Matt Hancock as the UK begins to ease restrictions, and open up from today, particularly with travels, is the point that the Health Secretary made about vigilance, about caution, and about the need for people to be careful. And it linked the spread of the Indian variant in the United Kingdom, particularly in the northwest part of England, to the fact that, look, persons who are eligible to take the vaccine, but who have refused to do so, are most vulnerable, and they could put everyone else at risk. And he says, look, such persons should take the vaccine to protect themselves and also to protect the country. And I guess this is the central message about the vaccination process, that if you take the vaccine, you are eligible for it, you not only protect yourself, you protect others. So Matt Hancock, for me, was hinging his point on the fact, the need for people, one, to take the vaccine, and also to embrace non-pharmaceutical measures that have been put in place, both at the national level and the international level. Now, as for South Africa, yes, South Africa is talking about a possible third wave, and is trying to protect itself against that possible third wave. It has not happened yet, but what you see in the example of South Africa, a country that started vaccination in February, but which since then has had to respond to trends in a proactive manner. Yes, I know the political opposition in South Africa will not agree with that, but we have seen an effort either in terms of rejecting or suspending or stopping the AstraZeneca vaccine, which was not responding properly to the B1351 variant, which is the South African variant, and then moving on to the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, the first country in the world to administer the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Now, in the last 7 days, there has been an uptick of up to about 46% in the infection rate in South Africa. South Africa, by the way, has the highest rate of infection in the entire continent of Africa. And now they are putting measures in place. They've procured, about 6 million worth of vaccines. They've been able to immunize 455,000 health workers out of the projected 1.2 million. And now they're saying that by February 2022, they will have been able to inoculate or vaccinate, about 2/3 of the South African population, which is about 45 million of their 60 million population. Okay, when I give all of these narratives, the question is, what are we doing in Nigeria along the same lines? Yes, we hear that in Lagos State, going with the federal government, there has been an extension of phase 1. But where are the vaccines? Morocco is the leading country in terms of vaccination. It's been able to do 15% of its population. Yes. Namibia and Zimbabwe have been able to do 2%. Even with all the proactiveness on the part of South Africa, South Africa has been able to do just less than 1%. Where is Nigeria in all of this? When are the next round of vaccines going to arrive? How many vaccines have we paid for? Or are we still waiting on COVAX facility, on China, on other donors? So this is my concern. So when we bring these examples from other countries, you ask the question, how do we compare in terms of the efforts to protect the Nigerian populace in the face of this pandemic, and the vaccine being said to still be the major breakthrough that all of us will need to take.
Okay, my quick chip in at this one will be data. So we've all gotten the data wrong with COVID. A report came out last week that says South Africa claims it's got 55,000 deaths from COVID, right? But last year, they had 155,000 deaths, more than the normal average death in South Africa. So if South Africa says 5,000 people have died from COVID, that's a lie. It could be probably over 100,000 people that have died from COVID.
That applies to every country. It's called excess death. It applies to every country.
So the question here should be, we can still even capture excess death because South Africa has got data. How about us here in Nigeria? Have we been able to capture excess death since the pandemic started? And how can we use capturing that data to plan for population?
These are all legitimate concerns you have raised. And to Tunu's point, I cannot rationalize what Prime Minister Narendra Modi is doing at this moment. But he says this has been budgeted for and he has to go ahead. But you also know that we have seen politicization of the coronavirus pandemic, and I think India is witnessing just that.
Thank you so much, Adesua. Hopefully India gets a good leader, because India doesn't have a leader as we speak anyway.